Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This time out, we finally have a new comic announcement. This is the reveal of the third one-shot Avatar comic, the final part of the trilogy, which is called the Awesome Ladies of Avatar trilogy. So we obviously had Katara and the Pirate Silver, focused on Katara. The next one coming out in February is Toph Beifong's Metalbending Academy, which is focused on Toph. And finally, the confirmation here, the third book is focused on Suki. And as you can see here, the title that they're going for is Suki Alone. So this is really cool. The title obviously is very fitting. We've had Zuko alone, we've had Korra alone. Here is Suki Alone. Really, really cool title. I really like the cover, which we'll get into in just a second. But here's the details that we have. So, Avatar The Last Airbender, Suki Alone, written by Faith Erin Hicks, illustrated by Peter Wortman and Adele Matera. Same creative team as the previous two books, of course. $12.99. Release date is June 22nd, 2021. Completely expected because the Toph book is out in February, so 4 months on from that is June. The big question, I suppose, as we go into next year is going to be, how do they follow this up? Based on what they have said, it's probably going to be more one-shots. But again, the whole Mike and Brian leaving the Netflix show situation maybe puts that up in the air, because I doubt too much planning has gone into what the second trilogy of one-shots is. So maybe with Mike and Brian free to work on the comics and stuff like that, maybe we can switch back and just have the one-shots kind of be one-shots rather than needing to be trilogy of one-shots as just extra books, and maybe you can get different creative teams on it. It's hard to tell exactly what's going to go on. But again, the hope would be that we don't end 2021 not really knowing what's next for Avatar comics after this first one-shot trilogy. But yeah, that's most of the information. Right now, there is no description of the book because I get the impression this is just an early listing. This happened before. This hasn't been announced by any news site or anything like that. So this, as expected, is, you know, a listing on Penguin Random House, just releasing this early. Based on the last few times, I believe the description will go up within the next couple of days, and then we'll get that news article within the next few days also. So I don't think we'll be left long without a full description, which will give us a little bit more context for what the book is actually going to be about. Unfortunately, I can only find the cover at this size, which I think speaks to the fact that it's a pretty early listing. So this is only like a 300 by 450 pixel image, and this is just zoomed in on it a little bit so you get a better look in the video. So it's clearly Suki in the Boiling Rock doing some training, and then you have the sort of, you know, spirit of Kyoshi sort of behind her, showing that, you know, okay, Suki's a Kyoshi warrior, and ultimately the legacy of those skills goes back to Kyoshi, which we learned about in the free comic book shells. Now, obviously, Suki has never met Kyoshi, so I do think this is more of a symbolic thing rather than Suki is going to be visited by the actual spirit of Kyoshi. I don't know, but we'll see, but it would be really interesting if they did something spiritual with Suki, but I don't necessarily think that's what they're going for here. It's just meant to highlight that Suki is a Kyoshi warrior. That's not just like a thing she kind of happens to do. That is her. That's her life. She's from Kyoshi Island. And, you know, we obviously went to Kyoshi Island. That's where we met Suki. But there's a lot of depth we could go into about sort of her history growing up and stuff like that. And I think that's what this book has the potential to do, in that obviously the cover would lead you to believe that it's going to be Suki's life in prison before Sokka and Zuko arrive and the escape attempt happens. But I'd almost feel that with the Suki Alone title and both of the previous sort of Alone episodes that we've had of Avatar are sort of flashback episodes, is this also going to be Suki reflecting on her life before now? I think that would be a really cool way to do it. Like, if you don't have a major plot going on in the prison, which I suppose doesn't make a ton of sense to happen necessarily. I can maybe see a few small incidents happening so you have a present day story, but nothing huge like another escape attempt. So I think most of the book kind of would almost have to reflect not just on the history that is within ATLA, which I guess would be the gap between her being captured by Azula in Appa's Lost Days and like a whole season later, basically, with Sokka and Zuko arriving. But cover a lot of that stuff in that, like, between her sort of scattered appearances in the show, we don't actually know the full details about what she got up to. There's little lines of dialogue here and there that cover, like, okay, she was inspired by the group after episode 4 to go out and sort of participate in the war. We met her then, obviously, in the Serpent's Pass and so on. Then we didn't meet her again until Appa's Lost Days, and then we didn't meet her again until the Boiling Rock. So there's a bunch of different gaps, and then there's always going back to her youth, which I think would be kind of interesting. If they're going to cover the significance of her Kyoshi warrior training, it almost feels like you maybe have to go back and do that and cover perhaps, like, here is how Suki stood out to become the leader of the Kyoshi warriors, to set up where she is in episode 4. You have a lot of stuff to do with Suki because she doesn't have the same level of development as the other members of Team Avatar. And this is a true option you have here to actually do development that fits in with the whole sandbox style storytelling, because I don't think flashbacks with Suki is something that is just off limits inherently. And just in general, I do think this is much more along the lines of what we would want out of the one-shot comics, compared to especially the first one. I think this book really shines a light on, I don't know what they were really going for with Katara and the Pirate Silver. Now, obviously, that is me sort of maybe overhyping this book before you truly know what it's about. But straight away, even if we don't get flashbacks, Suki in prison before the Boiling Rock is a more interesting setup than the tiny gap we have in the middle of book 2 that the Katara book takes place in. We'll see how Toph Beifong's Metal Bending Academy goes. I think it's going to be fun, and they could have some interesting elements that they introduce. We'll have to wait and see on that, but I also feel it might end up being a little bit unimportant. This, though, is a chance to have like 72 pages focused almost exclusively on Suki, a character who actually needs that development. Like, in the grand scheme of things, you know, Aang, Katara, Toph, Zuko, Sokka don't really need to be the focus characters of the one-shots, given that they're main characters in the show. Now, there's room to tell one-shot stories with them, but they have to be the more important ones. So obviously they got it wrong in my mind with the Katara book. The Toph book is a little bit better because it's at least set in the comic timeline. This is actually filling in a gap within ATLA that kind of needed to be filled in. So I am very excited about this, and yeah, the timing on this seems right on schedule, 4 months after the previous book, and then we'll have to wait and see about other stuff. The only other thing is that, like, okay, this is an announcement here in sort of early to mid-December. Where's the Korra comic announcement? They're obviously announcing stuff right now, and the expectation would be that they've been teasing that Korra comic announcement for so long that surely it's not too far off at this point. Because obviously, once this is done, I don't think there's going to be another Avatar book for the rest of the year. So they'll have to rely on whatever Korra book announcement that they have to fill in the rest of the time. So they either, I think, are going to announce that relatively soon, or within the next like 2 months or so, for probably like an August, September, October release would be my guess. But that seems like they've waited really, really long on that. But the thing is, like, okay, this sort of locks in, I suppose, most of the first half of 2021 in terms of what the releases are going to be. Given that, like, there's going to be omnibus editions, there are other deluxe edition books, the art book reprints, they're going to be coming out as well. But what about the new Korra books, of which there's only the one art book at this point? So there's still a lot of questions about just Dark Horse's release schedule for next year. We sort of knew that this one was coming. and it's nice to finally be like, oh, like this is actually exciting. Again, we have to wait and see what the preview actually says it's going to be about, in that the wording on that is going to be very interesting, in that if it says like Suki reflects on her life while in the Boiling Rock, that obviously suggests flashbacks. If it's Suki just gets used to life in the prison, that means, okay, we're more focused on the Boiling Rock prior to the escape attempt. Either way, I think it's going to be good, because we have confidence. Faith Erin Hicks knows how to write Suki well, and it feels like, this is a book to give her some development, with her pretty much on her own, likely only going to interact with characters that we have never really met before. Because like, I suppose Chit Sang can be like a background character, but the impression I get is that they meet properly for the first time in the episode. So, there's only so much you can do. I don't know, they might have her just reflect on the few times she's met the gang over the course of the series, being important to her, but we have to wait and see. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Suki alone as the third Avatar one-shot comic. How excited are you for this? What way do you think they're going to go with the story in this one? But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.